Hi, I'm Simon Alexander, Director and Chartered Financial Planner at Streamline Financial Planning. Today we'll be going over a very common question, which is I'm 60 with £300,000 of my pension, can I retire? So how this video is going to work is that I will share my screen, go through a slide presentation, which will cover off a fictional character's current situation, goals and assumptions. I'll then demonstrate the cash flow forecast, which will help us identify if this particular person with £300,000 in their pension can retire at age 60 or not. My experience as a chartered financial planner is that I've learned that we all have different levels of experience and knowledge when it comes to finances. So before I begin, I want to make sure that everyone understands these risk warnings. So I encourage you to pause the video now and please do read these risk warnings. But in summary, when making big financial decisions, for example, planning for retirement or dealing with pensions and investments, I strongly encourage that you seek professional financial advice. So now we can begin with the video. And to bring this video to life, I've created a fictional person named John Doe. And John is age 60. He is an HR director at a medium-sized company in London. He's been working at that same firm for 20 years. He is divorced and has 2 financially independent children. He is fit, healthy, and he loves a bit of travelling. And he earns £70,000 before tax, but most of what he earns gets spent. And then with regards to his wider wealth, he owns his own property, so that's worth £500,000. He's built up a bit of cash savings of £50,000, and then he's got 3 pensions scattered around from employment over the years. With his first and biggest pension being with Aegon, and this is the pension he is contributed into as well as his employer, and then he's got 2 additional pensions with Aviva and Scottish Widows. But really, in summary, he's got £300,000 in his defined contribution pensions. John's never taken an active interest in managing his pensions. He's always believed that the pension scheme will look after him when he retires. So one night, while trying to fall asleep, John has the light bulb moment. This light bulb moment is when you realise you're leaving the accumulation phase and entering the decumulation phase. So you move from earning an income and saving part of that income for retirement to, okay, I've lost my income and I need to start spending what I've saved up over the years. For many people, it comes as a bit of a stressful moment, and they have many questions. For example, what if the market crashes when I retire? How much income can I realistically afford to take? What about taxes? What about inflation and the cost of living crisis, something we've all experienced over the last couple of years? And how about all these decisions going to impact my retirement plans over the course of 30 or 35 years? And having this light bulb moment, this has prompted John to start looking into his pension schemes, and he's come to realise that they're not aligned to his risk profile and objectives. They are high cost and not very transparent, and they don't actually have the flexibility he requires to take an income in retirement. All of a sudden, John feels very isolated. He now understands how critical all these decisions are when determining if he has a successful retirement or not. So the purpose of this video is to try to help you understand how all these variables interact with one another to ensure that you can prepare for retirement and have a successful retirement of 30 or 35 years. So John's had this light bulb moment. He understands what comes with retirement. He's got all these questions, but he still wants to proceed with retiring now. With his objectives being, and the reasons being that he is tired at work and the long commute. He says life's short and he wants to make the most of his retirement while he's still active. And he would like to use his pensions to generate that sustainable income in retirement. His children are financially independent and means that he has no plans to leave them any legacy when he dies, so his pensions are solely used for his retirement and he wants to make the most of them. The next question when someone decides to retire is, how much can I spend? How much can I take while maintaining and sustaining my standard of living? Will I have enough for long-term care? And what about inflation risk? In summary, it's not just what I can spend, it is can I maintain and sustain my standard of living while keeping up with inflation, to also ensure that later down the road I don't run out of money. John is pretty frugal and he doesn't spend a ton of money. In particular, John would like to spend £23,300 per year in retirement. Conveniently, John's annual retirement expenditure amount is the same as the moderate amount established by a retirement study. The Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association commissioned a study on retirement living standards in the UK, which utilised independent research from Loughborough University. So this study takes a life-centric approach to analysing average retirement income, providing examples of what different retirement income groups could realistically afford. So the income groups are categorised as minimum, moderate and comfortable. And you can see here that John falls in the moderate category, and this assumes that he's going to roughly spend a certain amount on transport and holidays and food each year. I understand that income required in retirement will be different for everyone. I've used the figure of 23,300 per annum to illustrate how far a moderate income requirement can get you based on a certain amount of pensions and investments. When building a retirement plan and cash flow forecast for clients, it's always beneficial to take more of a conservative approach. This is particularly important when factoring in long-term care costs. So there's two types of long-term care costs. There's residential and nursing care costs. According to the Office of National Statistics, for someone who is 90, you can expect to stay in long-term care for nearly 4 years. Again, we're taking more of a conservative approach, and we're assuming John will stay in long-term care for 5 years, from age 90 to 95. And according to the Paying for Care website, they estimate that the average cost in today's terms for someone in London is 42,484 years. And we've assumed John's going to spend 3 years in residential care. And then for nursing care, the average cost in London in today's terms is just under £60,000, and we assume that John, for his last 2 years of his life, he's going to enter nursing care. And again, like the normal annual expenditure, these long-term care costs depend on various factors. For example, the care home you choose, the type of care you need, how long you're in for, and the annual increase in these care homes. So lots of things to consider, but I think it's important that we factor these into the cash flow forecast, and we can really determine if John can afford these high costs towards the end of his life. The next thing we have to identify is how long John is going to live for. So with improving medicine and technology, we are living longer. Based on the Office of National Statistics life expectancy calculator, a 60-year-old male has an average life expectancy of 84 years. So 1 in 4 chance of reaching 92, and a 1 in 10 chance of reaching 96. To be conservative and to keep it a round number, we have assumed John will live until the age of 95. We'd much rather plan for a little bit longer life expectancy, especially if you're above average or above average health. So in summary, John is age 60 and wants to retire now. He has £300,000 in his pension and wants to spend £23,300 per year in retirement. We assume he will enter long-term care at the age of 90 until the age of 95, and he will live until age 95. As a financial planner, it's essential to help clients understand their cash flow and expenses when deciding on their retirement age. So by analysing their current income and expenses, assets and liabilities, we can estimate how much they will need to sustain their expenses throughout a lengthy retirement. So in summary, cash flow planning helps us identify potential gaps in income and expenses, and it helps us develop strategies to mitigate these risks and make informed recommendations for clients to retire at a particular age and generate that sustainable income throughout retirement. So we've moved on to the cash flow forecasting part of the video, and we're going to determine if John can retire or not. So we've established John's retirement goals and objectives, the amount in his pensions, and his wider wealth as well. So we factored this into the cash flow forecast. It incorporates everything we've discussed already, and what we can see straight away is that John's retirement outlook does not look good. His retirement goal is only 44% funded, which means that 44% of the years that he's retired, he can use his liquid assets to fund his expenses. And this graph, which is the available investments or the available liquid assets, has quite a sharp downward slope. And this essentially means that he is drawing down on his pensions and his cash savings at a very rapid rate. But we will come back to this graph a bit later. What I'm going to do now is stress test the plan, and I'm going to press this button. And what this is going to do is run a scenario that has 1,000 different simulations, and it's got a volatility analysis and assesses how sensitive the plan is to certain investment return rates over a period of time. It gives us a really good understanding of where his shortfalls are and when he's going to run out of money. A typical cash flow forecast has fixed investment returns, for example, 5% every year. We know that's not realistic. in the real world, it's going to be varying investment returns at 20% one year, -10 the other, -5, +2, -1. So, and this is what this volatility analysis takes into account, and it really establishes the chance of success that John has of having enough liquid wealth to see him through retirement. And what we can see already is that for the first 10 years or so, until 16 years, he has enough money to cover his expenses. But really, for the remainder of retirement, he is out of money completely, does not have enough in his cash savings and his pensions to fund expenses, and he has quite a significant shortfall. He's going to have to address that, and that should be really alarming to John. And well, in summary, he will definitely run out of money, and he's going to need to address that as soon as possible. So we've established that John cannot retire at age 60 with £300,000 in his pension. I'm coming back to this graph, the available investment chart. This, as I mentioned earlier, it illustrates the amount of available liquid investments that John has to utilise to fund his retirement, and it shows us over time the value of his investments, and it is a sharp decline. And this is illustrating that he's drawing down on his pensions and his cash savings quite rapidly. And the red part of the chart illustrates that he's out of money, and he's going to have to address that as soon as possible. The y-axis illustrates the amount of available investments, and the x-axis is the projected timeline. So what we really want is to get this downward slope at least horizontal, or even increasing in the early years while sloping down towards the end of the projected timeline. But what we really want is to see no red line and have enough sufficient available investments to see him through the whole projected timeline. So this is another useful chart. It's called the retirement payslip chart. It shows the different sources of income that can be generated from his assets, so from his pension and cash savings, to cover that expense in that particular year. So each bar represents 1 year. The y-axis represents the cash flow, so the withdrawal or the income payment to cover that expense in that year. And the x-axis is the projected timeline, so from today, so retirement, all the way to age 95. This graph is useful because it shows us the different sources of income. So we can see the brown bars of his state pension starting age 67. The light blue is his pension pots, and these colours are his cash savings that he utilises. However, you can see the big red bars, and this is the income shortfalls. So he's going to have to save up additional amounts, invest additional amounts in his pensions in order to create an income to cover these red bars in retirement. The big spike at the end, so from age 90 to 95, that's the high costs of long-term care. So you can see that compared to his general expenditure throughout retirement, he's got these big costs right at the end that he needs to factor in. So overall, we've established that based on John's retirement age, the value of his total pensions, and the expenditure in retirement, John is very unlikely he can afford to retire now, and there are big things that he needs to address immediately to make sure that he can at least have a comfortable and successful retirement. So we've discussed this with John. He's a bit disappointed, a bit in shock, but the good news is he's open to making adjustments and putting a plan in place to ensure that he has a successful retirement. So the best thing about this cash flow tool is that we can factor in and build in certain strategies, and this is to illustrate to John that if you follow these recommendations or the strategy, that you can improve your retirement plans quite drastically. So John's open to discussing these strategies and maybe delaying retirement, earning extra income, and see how much of an impact this has on his retirement plans. So the first strategy that he's open to is delaying retirement by 2 years. Delaying retirement by 2 years allows him to work for another 2 years to accumulate more, to save and to accumulate more, and it actually delays him withdrawing from his pensions for another 2 years. As you can see, this has an improvement on his liquid wealth. So as you can see that the slope has kind of shifted across and it's increased slightly. You can see that it's slightly improved the situation just by retiring 2 years later. He is going to save an additional £1,000 per month into his pension, and so he's happy to adjust his expenses now and free up another £1,000 per month that he's going to put away into his pension. And again, you can see this is improved his retirement outlook. It's shifted this downward slope of the graph further down, which means that he's going to well, as it stands, run out of money a little bit later. You can see that the retirement outlook has moved from 44 to 48 by applying these two strategies. John is also open to taking a phased approach in retirement, and he is happy to work for the first 5 years. So as it stands, he's going to work for another 2 years and then take a phased approach for the next 5 years, so to age 67. The reason behind this is at age 67, his state pension starts, and he thinks that maybe that's a good day to fully retire. But in that phased approach of retirement, he's going to do part-time work, so either 3 or 2 days a week, and he's going to aim to earn £30,000 a year. And the idea behind that is that retirement is a big adjustment to make. He feels like he might lose out on the social aspect and that he gets from work, so he's actually really happy to work part-time. In addition to that, by earning income of £30,000 a year, he's actually going to delay taking money from his pensions and his cash for the first 5 years of retirement, which improves his retirement outlook quite drastically. And again, you can see this graph is starting to be pushed up further and get slightly more horizontal. The next strategy is to look at his pensions, because we've established that his pensions are high cost, low performing, and not very flexible. So what we're going to do is going to consolidate all his pensions into one pot, and this is the low cost and flexible pension that he can now use to invest for the long term and draw different amounts flexibly over the course of retirement. Again, this drastically improves his retirement outlook, and the graph is really improved now. It's kind of more horizontal but sloping down towards the end. He still has a bit of a shortfall, but it's a lot better than it currently is at the moment. We're going to implement the recommended portfolio. So after doing a risk profile exercise with John, we've established that his current pensions are invested in a lower risk profile that he's comfortable with. So we kind of adjusting it, making it more suitable for John. He's comfortable holding more equities and growth assets, so that's what we put him in, and it's increased his outlook slightly. And then finally, during retirement, we're going to help John take withdrawals from his pensions in a tax efficient manner, and that's improved his outcome slightly. So by applying those basic strategies, we've improved John's outlook from not being able to retire now and being completely out of liquid wealth in 2040 to really getting him all the way to 2056. And the sharp decline that we see at the right at the end, that's the high cost of long-term care. As it stands, John could not afford to retire now, even if he applies these strategies, because he's still going to be running out of money. But he is happy to consider downsizing in the future, even working a little bit longer in retirement to take it more of an income. But he's happy to work that out as the years go by. Yep, these are the different strategies that John can apply, and he's happy to implement them and work towards them. So now, with these strategies applied, we're going to run a volatility analysis again, and we're going to see, okay, well, when is it really likely that John's going to run out of money? And if he can afford to withdraw from his, or does he have enough liquid wealth throughout his projected timeline, taking into account different investment returns over the course of 35 years. Now you can see that this outlook looks a lot better than the original version, and but you can see here, and again this was demonstrated in the previous chart, that he will be running out of money, and the chance of success in the last 5 years is very low, and these are due to the high costs of long-term care. So again, something I would really emphasize and explain to John, that retirement looks positive, but you need to address these high costs of long-term care, just to be cautious and to ensure that you've got enough liquid wealth to cover these costs if they do occur in right at the end of your life. Yep, that's it from me. That's the end of the video. I hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions about your plan for retirement or anything in this video that you don't understand, please feel free to drop me an email at simon@streamlinefb.co.uk. Thanks. Bye.